Hi everyone, welcome back to part 25 of the Frogger mini-series, and in this video we'll be creating the victory state for this prototype. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so we're going to have to create some widgets. We got our game over state set up, so we want to do the same thing for basically your victory state or your win state. So we'll head into our widgets folder. And before I forget, because he keeps looking at me, let's fix the spelling mistake we made with the paused widget. So we'll double click that one. We'll do the text element, and we'll just go ahead and try spelling that correctly. All right, there we go. Compile, save, and at least that part is done. All right. I think the best way to do it is we can probably reuse a lot of the same logic that we are doing for our game over widget for our you win widget. So we can just actually right click and hit duplicate, and we'll just call it WBP underscore you win. We'll double click to open that up, and we'll have to make some changes. Instead of game over, let's actually just say you win. And then the other thing is we have an animation on this widget called Game Over. I'm just going to press F2 after highlighting it and rename it to You Win. And then we can modify the animation if we want, but I think for simplicity, we'll kind of keep it the same where it just kind of blurs and fades in like that. But if we wanted to, we could maybe animate it a little bit more where we maybe drop down the letters individually. We'll see how it looks and then kind of go from there. Figure that out, but we'll compile and save that, and then if I go back into the animation, click off it, it'll get us off that view there. If we go to the graph, we are doing an event construct where it plays that animation, it waits 6 seconds, and then it opens the main menu level, which is basically our level 1. So we have to figure out the logic for our victory state. That's going to be housed in the game manager. So we can come into our blueprints folder, open up the BP underscore game manager. And then we had a lot of functions in here. We had a score. Actually, I think it's just a score function or score event that we're going to be working with. Yeah, so when we score, we obviously increase the player's score. We update the heads-up display, we stop the timer, then we call this little thing which increases the number of frogs. We then do a check on how many BP underscore destination, which are those little frog elements we made in the game, and we get the total length. So we figure out if the level has 3 frogs, 4 frogs, 5 frogs, whatever, however many levels you're creating for this. This is basically a way for it to check, does the number of frogs, which is not really the score, but how many successful areas the player has hit, is that greater than or equal to the length of the array for this blueprint, which is basically the number of frogs on this level. If it is, then we're simply printing a string that says you win or you won. So we can get rid of the print string, and instead we can create a widget. We can create the You Win widget, and we could simply add it to viewport. Now, if we want to test this out, just for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is the number of frogs is currently initialized at 0. I believe this particular level has 5. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 frogs. We're going to cheat. I'm going to set this to be 4. We can compile that, and then I'm going to drag the player start. Actually, I think there is a way, if I could just right click, play from here. We'll see if it actually moves me over. It does. All right, so we just do that. Although you can see it kind of messes with the camera's perspective, but it shouldn't matter. So it plays the You Win, but then you notice it actually respawns the player object. So that's not what we want. So what we can do is I'm actually just going to drag this over here, And then we'll just kind of move it right in front of the frog. It's a little bit easier. So we need a way to basically stop the player from kind of being teleported. Because the game's technically over at that point, so we might as well just keep the player there while we play the animation or the widget, and then go from there. The logic that's being derived from is going to be from the BP_destination blueprint that we created. So we can open that up here. And I think we only have a few things going on. We got begin play, we're casting the game manager and storing it. And then we're checking an overlap event, which is on that little trigger box you see right here, that little cube. And then we're checking, is it active? If it's not already active, then we'll cast to the player blueprint. We'll set it to is active. We'll increase the game manager score. We'll make the frog unhidden, which basically shows that giant frog in the map. We'll wait 1 second. We'll call CameraWorks and spawn and swap. So I think the best place to do this is kind of at the end here. So we're going to grab these 3 nodes, move them back a little bit. And we can add in a branch node by holding B and clicking in the graph. And then if this is false, we'll do the normal logic, but if it's true, we'll basically do nothing. We could maybe disable the player's movement, but we'll just let it move around for now. But we need to check a few things. So let's maybe give ourselves a little bit more room here. So we already have our game manager reference, so we can actually pull off that and get the number of frogs, which is that integer. And then we can say, is that greater than or equal to, and then we'll want to check the number of frogs in the map. So the way we can do that is the same way we did it in the game manager, which is get all actors of class. And we probably should just store that somewhere, but we could do it this way too, not a big deal. And then we could just say get the length. And then we'll pass that in down here. So basically when this calls, it checks, it first calls the score, which will increase the number of frogs before this, which is great. And then afterwards it checks, all right, how many of these BP destinations do we have? In this case, in this level, it's going to find 5. So it's going to say, okay, we have 5 destinations. Is the current number of frogs, which is initialized at 4, we increase to 5. So 5 is greater than or equal to 5. This will evaluate to true and do nothing. If it evaluates to false, then it'll basically spawn the player and let the player keep going, that sort of thing. So let's actually compile, save. We'll go ahead and play this. We'll start from one of the destination areas. All right, so we can move here. If I go and I trigger the frog, blurs out the screen, shows the you win, and then it should reset the level and allow me to play again. Now, if we want to make sure that we didn't break anything, we can go back to the game manager. We'll set our frogs back to 0, compile and save. And if we play again, I'm still going to cheat and start in front of the thing. If I trigger it this time, it shouldn't end the game or play you win. It should simply respawn the player and allow them to keep going. So now I have to get basically the rest of the frogs. But all right, good people, I think we'll cut it here, but in the next one, we'll create some Niagara effects to add to the project. As always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.